What if the sky was no longer the limit, but just the beginning? What if Earth was not our only home anymore? The first launch didn't feel like history. It felt like fear. Billions watched as Astra Mk-1 tore through the sky, leaving behind a planet slowly losing its breath. Rising oceans, collapsing ecosystems, a world once full of life, now fighting to survive. For decades, scientists warned us. Now, we had no choice. We had to leave. Inside the spacecraft, Dr. Elena Carter looked back at the only home she had ever known. Beautiful, fragile, fading. But she wasn't running away. She was carrying humanity's last hope. Because Mars wasn't just a destination, it was a second chance. 7 months in the silence of space. Artificial gravity kept their bodies alive. Science controlled every breath, every drop of water. Out here, there were no second chances. Only survival. Mars was waiting. Cold, silent, unforgiving. A world with no oxygen, no protection, no life. But what if we could change that? Terraforming. A dream once called impossible. Releasing greenhouse gases, melting frozen carbon, warming an entire planet, turning red into green. The landing was chaos. Dust storms screamed across the surface as Astra Mk-1 fought to survive. And then, silence. For the first time in history, a human stepped onto Mars. A small step on an alien world. Inside the domes, life began again. Plants grew without soil. Air was created from nothing. Mars wasn't alive, but humanity was teaching it how to breathe. And then, something unexpected happened. Mars began to change them. Lower gravity reshaped their bodies. Time itself felt different. Children born here were no longer just human. They were Martian. A new culture emerged. A new identity. Not Earth. Not Mars. Something in between. But what happens when humanity is no longer united? Back on Earth, the race had begun. New missions, new colonies, new power. Space was no longer exploration. It was expansion. And with expansion came conflict. Mars demanded independence. Because how do you control a world that's millions of miles away? A single question echoed. Who owns a planet? Elena watched it all unfold. Not just as a scientist, but as part of something new. A new civilization. A new future. And then came the realization. Mars was never just a backup. It was a mirror. A reflection of who we are and who we could become. Slowly, the planet began to change. Clouds formed. Temperature shifted. And for the first time, life appeared. A single green plant growing in red soil. Fragile, beautiful, alive. Elena looked at it and finally understood. This was never just about survival. It was about responsibility. Because if we can change another planet, what excuse do we have for destroying our own? 2 worlds, 1 species, evolving, expanding, learning. Because the future of humanity is not just written in the stars, it's written in the choices we make today.